we have a declining number of students for an increasing demand. We also see it on the other side as well, where we have, I think the stat is somewhere upwards of 40% of current licensed surveyors will be retiring in the next 5 years. Train a lot of agents in order to make some sort of a decision based on the information you have. But I think in our profession, especially, the decision of what tool to use and the nuance of how that technology impacts your decision or delivers the level of accuracy required is still very much in the hands of our profession. I think for students, even if you are not allowed to work on particular projects with AI, but I think using them in your own personal or in those courses where you are allowed is an important muscle and skill set to flex.
WGIC Horizons, a podcast for latest technology, business, partnerships, and policy trends in geospatial industry.
Hello and welcome to Horizons, the World Geospatial Industry podcast. My name is Bhanu Rekha. I'm the editor and communications strategist with WGIC. My guest today is Stephanie Michaud, Director of Product Management and Field Software, Trimble, and member of the WGIC Executive Board, and she's also a member of the Industry Academia Committee. Stephanie, welcome to WGIC podcast.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Bhanu.
Great to have you here on the show. I understand Industry Academia is your passion project, but I just want to understand, besides your day job at Trimble, you spent a significant part of your professional time over the past 15 years on fostering deeper connections between industry and academia, right? Before we deep dive into the topic, tell us why is this closer to your heart?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I like to share this too, because it's also about like me and how I grew up and
Sure.
I come from a family of teachers. And so I understand the challenge
Oh.
of educating and bringing up professionals into the space. But, for me, when I started on my journey through education and into professional life, I received a full scholarship from the university to study engineering. I didn't know I was going to study geomatics engineering at the time, but for me, that was the opportunity that I had to just get into the space and pursue a career that ended up being in this industry. And so I look to create similar opportunities for students today to bridge the gap between where they might be in the world and coming into this great industry where I've found a lot of success.
Wonderful. That's a great personal connect
Yeah.
that you bring to this conversation. Stephanie, I want to ask you, a recent study shows that the global geospatial job openings are expanding at the rate of about 11 to 12% between 2024 and 2030, while as the supply of graduates is expected to rise only at a slow pace at about 2% during the same period. And I'm sure you see that this leaves a progressively widening talent shortage in the industry, not just in the traditional surveying and mapping and earth observation fields, but also across the industries that are rapidly integrating geospatial technology. Now, I want to understand what are your observations about this scenario of qualified geospatial professions at various levels in the industry?
Yeah, and it's not just we have a declining number of students for an increasing demand. We also see it on the other side as well, where we have, I think the stat is somewhere upwards of 40% of current licensed surveyors will be retiring in the next 5 years, right? And so we also have a shortage coming on the senior level of our industry, where we're having to simultaneously curate the next generation while also handing off these senior level responsibilities. So we're really kind of pinching here in that the demand is high for these types of professionals, we're doing what we can on the academic side, but we also need to be doing this on the industry professional side, where we're looking at how can we bring people through the organization, giving them opportunities to move from entry to mid to senior positions, especially as we have this aging workforce that needs to pass on all of that hard work and knowledge that they've curated. So so from my perspective for entry level, I do see a real strong, passionate cohort of students who are interested in the technology we provide. And what I see as kind of an opportunity is that we really don't have a good cross-pollination for people to just find this profession. I think there's generally what I observe is that, like, within, even if we think of just like engineering schools, there's not a knowledge of the geospatial industry in a way that would enable us to reach out beyond kind of the traditional surveying, focus stream of engineering. And so the opportunity I see is to do a better job of marketing what we do in that profession, but also integrating geospatial technologies into civil, mechanical, software engineering. And so different institutions are attempting to do this in order to ensure we can bolster the number of geospatial professionals coming into the space. But simultaneously, I also think on the industry side, we need to be looking at creating early career programs to bring these students into the workforce and really find ways to give them challenging opportunities, but also stretch them to move into more of business capacity in order to ensure that those who will be retiring or looking to transition to perhaps more of a part-time scenario have someone to hand that work off to.
True. That's absolutely true. The industry has to market itself to attract more talent into it, and I see very good ways in terms of attracting more talent into the industry. What are some of the ways that the private sector can facilitate hands-on industry experience as well for students?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different attempts to do this, and I think that the important thing and what I want to always share with is that as an industry and as professionals, we really need to take the onus. We can't just solely leave this with academia. And so what that means is that we need to also take ownership of what are the requirements that we're expecting from graduates. We need to ensure that we are able to tie what they're learning from a theoretical standpoint into application. That's when the magic really happens. I think of like when I was studying and learning to program, and I had to program least squares adjustments, and I really didn't understand, like, why do I have to learn programming? And then I realized that if I was going to take measuring rounds of continuous survey observations on a location for a monitoring project for indefinitely, I needed a program to be able to handle and perform all those accuracy checks. I can't do that manually, right? And so for me, that connected all of these, why I'm studying these types of tools to provide a foundation for what I would need to do or to understand the technology we have implemented in space. And so that's where I think that as organizations, what we can do is really work with those local universities that you have, or just local professional body organizations, in order to be a part of whether it's industry advisory councils or providing guest lectures, tactical and very small time commitment to provide a guest lecture. But you really don't know as a professional the impact you can have on students just by being in the room with them. And so I really encourage all of us to show up for early career students as they're kind of starting in their journey, and to continue to do that. And we at at my company, I'm part of like sponsoring a very involved early career program, and so internships and work experience can also really be tailored, and taking that responsibility of taking on a student for a set amount of time and giving them that exposure. Yes, it takes time and organization and planning, but it really does give a lot of opportunity to those individuals who then go on and share their experience with their peers.
Stephanie, I see that the industry is rapidly shifting and it is no longer just making maps in the geospatial, right? It has become a central pillar of the digital economy, heavily integrated with AI, cloud computing, and real-time data analytics as well. This evolution has created a number of workforce challenges, right? So, what, according to you, is the impact of AI and automation on the geospatial roles?
Yeah, this is such a hot topic right now, and I feel like
I
so
know.
many people ask me this. What I see is really this, the impact is truly around automating repetitive tasks. That's the impact right now. And I think the challenge for us as industry professionals is maintaining our level of discernment and decision making, right? The surveying profession is really required to be the foundational geospatial knowledge for, I mean, the infrastructure of our world. And so what I expect of our professionals going forward is that they will have to balance what can be automated, but what still requires rigorous decision making and upholding the integrity of the profession. So this is something that I think is a real challenge because yes, you want to have some simplicity, or there are certain tasks that would be great to automate, but we can't solely rely on, there still needs to be the human element of how we're making decisions and how we are considering unique scenarios that we encounter in the world, right? You can train a lot of agents in order to make some sort of a decision based on the information you have. But I think in our profession, especially, the decision of what tool to use and the nuance of how that technology impacts your decision or delivers the level of accuracy required is still very much in the hands of our professionals and relies on years of experience that I don't think we are at the stage yet where we can provide that level of training to an agent and or an LLM. So I think that there's looking for where we can automate. I think the feature extraction example of, we used to have people picking points in in parallel images. We can automate that based on identifying repeated objects such as lampposts or cracks within an eroding structure, or signposts, that type of thing, vegetation. And that can be modeled. But when it comes to actually making decisions around what is the best tool, or where should we be actually making improvements, I think that really still relies on the knowledge of our geospatial industry. Um, because I work in product development and work with product management, I think the challenge for those individuals in creating new products for our professionals also lies in how can we be more productive, but not create so much more of a volume of work, right? Now the barrier has shifted, because before we were building products and we were the building of the product was very expensive, right? So we tried to do all these things to delay the building of the product. Now we're in a world where, especially because I'm in software, the building is cheap. And so we could potentially build everything. So the question becomes, what is the most important to build and why? And that's where I think that we have to be very much a curator of what is the experience, understanding our customers and the scenario they're in, as opposed to just creating something to put it out there, because has become a lot easier to just put a product in the marketplace.
True, true. Within this context of your work at Trimble, what do you see, and what are some of the ways and what are the skills that students would benefit to ride this wave of AI successfully?
Yeah. Right now, I would say within the academic setting, there is, depending on the institution, even the course and the professor, there is a challenge of, should you be allowed to use AI tools or not? And I think that is also a dynamic we're dealing with, because in our industry, when these students arrive, depending on what level of exposure to these tools they've had, they might be behind or far advanced. And so in the industry, we're very actively promoting the use of AI tools. And so I think for students, even if you are not allowed to work on particular projects with AI, I think that's a nuance and there's an intention behind that. But I think using them in your own personal or in those courses where you are allowed is an important muscle and skill set to flex. That being said, coming back to that level of discernment and actually understanding the topic at hand, I've had some students, come work for me and they're using these tools, and then I will have a dialogue with them about the report they created, the competitive analysis they created, and they're not referring to that material, or they are solely relying on that rather than being able to have that active dialogue or apply that situation going forward. And so while, if we take that scenario of a competitive analysis, AI can scrape the internet and provide you with quite a bit of detail around what would go into that analysis. You need to be able to apply that analysis to understand how that should impact our product direction going forward and what that means. And so using the tool, but understanding the results, internalizing them, and then using that to make a decision going forward is the skill that I want students to be able to do, whether that's competitive analysis or understanding theory or programming. These types of things are very important.
Fantastic. I think the discernment, as you said rightly, is a key word for students moving forward, I think. Another important aspect, which is again and again highlighted in various conversations hosted by WGIC, is the need for deeper conceptual understanding and not just procedural training and toolkits. Well, on the other side, the industry need is for job-ready graduates and full-stack geospatial experts, right? So what is your perspective on the skill alignment and where is the balance, my friend?
Yes. It's so tough, right? Because we simultaneously want subject matter experts, but then we also want people who can move from GIS all the way to laser scanning and in between, right? And so I really, in my opinion, I think that there are academic programs that are focusing on the breadth of the geospatial offering, serve to provide a lot. This is where I think having work programs where we can bring students into certain areas of the business. Within Trimble, we have the rotational program where students can work in various different areas, because this is not just about geospatial technologies, it's also about understanding the business and how we do work, right? When I think about my early experiences, I really enjoyed and learned a lot from being a testing engineer, working with our equipment and simulating how our customers work. Also from being a support staff, taking calls from our customers when they had a problem and troubleshooting that on the fly. And all of that has helped serve me to understand when I'm creating products or when I'm creating a business strategy, what we need to be able to do given those other roles. So I think what I encourage students to do now, and also just even professionals today, is that if you are looking to, it's good and it's healthy to pursue individual technologies, but also to look at different job functions in our space as well. If you've worked as a sales engineer, coming into the product side is a great way to apply that knowledge. And maybe you have some frustration because you saw firsthand on the front lines what our product had missing. You can bring that in and then understand and how we actually work with the engineering team to create something new, and vice versa, right? So I think that it is important. It's, we often think in this world that everything is very dynamic. And so I encourage people to embrace change and opportunities when they see that.
Yes, embrace change and opportunities as you come that. Okay, so where do you see how can a deeper industry academia collaboration address this kind of an alignment and balance?
Yeah, I think coming back to our industry is often under promoted or doesn't have the same visibility as other disciplines in kind of the technical engineering side of the house. And so I think as industry bodies, as well as companies and academia working together to create joint opportunities, whether that's having a seminar that focus on emerging technology or trends, sharing that with students, but also with professionals. And I think the Horizons event is a great example of where we bring all of those different areas together to facilitate that cross-pollination of skills and also different technologies and how they're being applied. For me, the value is in the application and sharing that, because if we're truly going to bring more people into this industry, they have to understand the impact they could have, right, in those opportunities with that knowledge. And so I really like to have professionals share their career journey as well, because it's often not linear how we arrived in these roles today, right? And so it can be really inspiring as well.
Stephanie, a few months ago, Trimble Technology Lab was set up at the University of Calgary, your alma mater, and also previously at several select universities worldwide, right? Tell us more about this initiative and what prompted Trimble to bring cutting-edge technology close to the academic corridors.
Yes, we started this initiative through our SketchUp business, actually, probably, maybe like 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less than 10 years ago. And so it started with, providing software licenses to computer labs for SketchUp and within architecture and design, which was the starting point. And then through relationships that other kind of, I will say, stewards within the Trimble community, especially within our geospatial organization, we were looking to replicate how can we also do that in a more formalized way with our geospatial technology. So having not just donating GNSS receivers and total stations, but actually getting the full workflow delivered to students in a single location where they could experience what we call like field to finish, right? And so we had piecemeal donated many different pieces of equipment to different universities around the world. And this was when we fused this initiative with field and office software as well, suddenly we started to see the students just organically experimenting and having this space where now on their desktop, they have access not just to SketchUp, but also to Trimble Business Center, to RealWorks, to Tekla structures. And it's incredible to see like what they're creating or the data they're moving. And they can go out and scan the building and import it and bring that in and work with it and do modeling off of a 3D scan. So I've really enjoyed seeing this globally evolve in how students are able to use the space. I mean, I think we can all relate to when you were a student and you're finding where's the great place to study, or where do you feel like you can get in that zone where you're getting your work done and you're productive, but you're also leveraging the tools at your disposal. And so we really seek to create together with the university and the different departments a space like that on campus for students, and then working with the professors and staff to ensure that we can incorporate pieces of that technology into their existing curriculum. I'll say that that's the challenging part, especially for when we partner with a lot of different disciplines within the university, is making sure we find the right fit. But I've really been inspired by some of the connections we've had. The anthropology department is using a lot of our GIS tools and the soft GNSS with the Catalyst receiver for mapping archaeological dig sites. And so that's like a great way of bringing geospatial technology into a cross-pollinating into a different field. And then I've seen some of the capstone projects that students have used our technology to improve scanning registration, for example, or working with designing and modeling off of those scans, or taking different sensor fusion technologies and bringing them together. So it's been really incredible to see what students are able to create just organically, as opposed to being told they have to use a particular tool.
That's fantastic to know. Any specific success story, or how as to how this initiative is attracting and preparing the next generation and opening up their curiosity? Would you like to share something?
Yeah, there's a couple examples, within the University of Calgary specifically, there's a design fair. All students in their fourth year of engineering are required to use that to create a project that they work on in a team for the entire academic year. This year, the winning team was from the geomatics engineering profession, and that was
Fantastic.
leveraging both our GNSS and laser scanning tools. And so, yeah, it was really neat to see the project that they had created. I think that there are all so many like that example of that crossover with anthropology, but the other example too is bringing that surveying piece to, say, landscape architecture and design is also a great one, as we're partnering with the School of Land Use Planning and Architecture and Design there at the university as well. So I really look forward to seeing what else will come out. And this is only in its, first academic year. So lots more success stories to come, I'm sure.
True. I greatly appreciate what Trimble is doing to attract more talent into the industry. But we also understand no one company is going to resolve the skills gap. And that is the reason why we have WGIC with the
Yes.
Industry Academia Committee as well, right? So I wish you great success in your passion project in this very critical aspect of this industry. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and being on our show. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
This has been Horizons by WGIC. Like, subscribe, and share to help us spread insightful geospatial conversations.